This is important, and I think a lot of people, even within the NIO community, have either missed it or forgotten about it. So that's why I tweeted about it, but I also wanted to highlight it and start this video off with this point. In the third quarter earnings call, William Lee said there were 3,300 new sales fellows, that's what they call them, the sales personnel, folks who they hired in September and October of 2023. That gave NIO a total of 5,700 in the front line. So in other words, they more than doubled the sales fellows that they had, but he said they would need about 6 months to really impact sales. Now, if you factor 6 months in, that sets us in the April-ish time frame where we had an over 15,000 delivery month and now a new record over 20,000 for May. And things are setting up really nicely. Now, I don't think this is the only reason that the sales are so good for NIO, but I think if we see this continue into July and August, it is a validation that the sales personnel are absolutely impacting things. So I wanted to bring it up and make people aware of it or remind them if they had forgotten about it. Now, this is a poll that I set up, and I'm very curious what it's going to end up looking like. A lot of people after the June 6th earnings, which NIO will have pre-market before the U.S. market opens here on Thursday, a lot of people are expecting the NIO stock price to go up. I actually don't trust the shorts, and I won't be surprised if we see NIO stock go down after the earnings. Maybe it'll even go down, and then some big money will get involved and push it up. We'll see, but that's kind of what I'm thinking, and this is one of the reasons why. This is the update to the fails to deliver. Now, I've been tracking this and talking about this for a while. This is the entire stock history for NIO, and one of the things that I'd like to point out, the yellow indicates the price for NIO. And there's one period, one time frame where the price really moved and moved a lot to the upside. And during that time frame, if you'll note, there were not a lot of the white lines, which represent fails to deliver. Now, fails to deliver could be made up fake shares created out of thin air that could possibly have been used to suppress or manipulate stock price. I mentioned this recently because we had a 5 million spike on a single day near the beginning of April. And I thought, okay, I want to watch this and see what happens in early May. And so May, we finally got the numbers in. This is all lagged, delayed data, by the way. We never get to see it real time. This is one of the issues or challenges with trying to trade, if you ask me anyway. But so here's what we saw. A number, I think it was 4 days in a row, 3 or 4 days in a row of 1.5 million or more fails to deliver. Now, to put this into context, you say, well, what does that matter? Well, on a day like today, and it's after the market is closed, and if you'll note up here, we didn't even have 30 million shares traded for NIO on this day, and this is Tuesday, June 4th, as I record this. Imagine having millions and millions of shares that could be used to influence, let's say, or move the stock price in a certain direction. With fewer than 30 million shares traded in a single day, it's not hard to imagine that that could be done, right? I just want to have awareness of things like this. And if we're not getting the volume, and by the way, for a comparison, if you want, this volume during this time frame was 80 to 100 million shares traded on average daily. It's a big difference. And what you'll note, if you look here, to me, it seems pretty obvious there's a correlation with the increase of the fails to deliver, the white lines, with the decrease of the NIO stock price. And it's the same concept overview as back here. Again, the only time frame where it didn't seem to happen is when the NIO stock price absolutely took off. And maybe that's what we'll see again here in the not so distant future. But is it possible for NIO to go below $4 again? Sure, it's possible. In fact, this is a video that I talked about the possibility of NIO going below $4 again. And also that I think ultimately we'll see new all-time highs. We'll see it go over $70. Trying to predict when, that's the hard part. But in this video, and I wanted to bring this up because I haven't responded to all the comments yet, and I will, but I want to give it a little more time, including through the earnings on June 6th. And if you'll note, there are a couple things even beyond that I'm watching here. The timestamps, I set these timestamps up to make it more convenient and easy for you all as the viewer to click through. In case you don't want to watch the whole video, you can kind of see what I was talking about at a different point. This is, for example, where I talked about the 5 million fails to deliver spike. But back to what I was starting to say, this is the 2024 election. I think it's going to affect the time frame for Chinese EVs into the US. So this is obviously beyond the June 6th earnings call. And in my mind, we've got a lot to see sort of play out here in the US. So here's the other video I also wanted to mention and bring up, NIO Profitability. Some might say this is ridiculous, that I'm wrong, that it's too bold. And I could be wrong, and I have no problem. I'll come back and talk about it if I end up being wrong about this. But I, again, laid out, and I call them dots in here, but really I'm considering them indicators. And there are a couple of indicators we'll get in the first quarter, but the single biggest one moving forward that could impact NIO is the JAC buyout. And I have actually been digging into the annual SEC filings, trying to see if they ever shared and I'm talking about multiple years I'm trying to dig back into, and I haven't found it yet, because it seems to me that there was an agreement between NIO and JAC that NIO would either pay them per vehicle or a percentage per vehicle or something along with the other agreements that they had. In other words, this could end up saving NIO a lot of money. And I remember, and here's a little teaser, I think you might be surprised and pleasantly surprised if you go back to the third quarter earnings call and review the transcript. There are a lot of good things dropped. One thing that William Lee mentioned, this is a little dot that I think he put out there for any of us paying attention. He talked about how once that buyout was complete, the margins for NIO should shift by about 10%. And I don't know if that's the bottom line. I don't know how that's going to be shown, but that's one of the things I'm kind of looking for, just an indicator of that in the first quarter earnings. But even the first quarter to second quarter earnings, which is why I'm kind of calling the second quarter as the one to watch. And then moving forward, we'll see how deliveries are and how the margins are and how that buyout really affects things for NIO. I think it could be a lot bigger and have a bigger impact than folks are expecting or realizing yet. But we'll only get a teaser on that because with just over 30,000 deliveries in the first quarter, NIO already on pace for maybe a 56 to even 60,000 second quarter. You know, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We've been tracking this for a long time, weekly and monthly, and I've got playlists to make it easier for us to kind of look back. But it looks to me like we could see almost a 2x or a 2x of the deliveries in the second quarter. So that makes the margins and how those end up looking even more important moving forward for NIO. Anyway, I wanted to share some of this, unpack it, and try to get it out before the earnings, which will be, again, June 6th, Thursday before the market opens. Have a great night. I will see you all again very soon.